And the man at the center of this earthquake? It wasn't some anonymous source whispering behind closed doors. It wasn't a random tweet from a beat reporter trying to stir up clicks. It wasn't even a slip from a coordinator. No, this came straight from the core of the Cleveland Browns. It came from the one guy who embodies the grit, the toughness, the relentless defiance of this city. MYLES GARRETT. MYLES GARRETT snapped. He broke through all the noise. His voice cut raw, unfiltered, like a lightning bolt tearing through the sky. And he said out loud what fans have been whispering, what the boldest of us have been daring to hope for but weren't sure we could believe yet. He confirmed it. Shedeur Sanders is QB1. Stop. Let that sit with you. Not someday, not after months of sitting on the bench, clipboard in hand. Not at some random point down the road. Right now, heading into week 2. And not against a soft, forgettable defense from outside the division. No. His very first start comes against one of the most feared units in football, the Baltimore Ravens. Let's build a totem pole together. Smash like, subscribe, and comment. If this video hits 2,000 likes, that means we're beating the Baltimore Ravens. Let's make it happen. Now let me tell you why that hit me like a thunderclap. For decades, literally decades, this franchise has been haunted by one storyline above all others: quarterback chaos. The curse that just wouldn't break. High draft picks who fizzled out. Veterans who never fit. Wild experiments that collapsed before they even started. Every year, it was the same cruel cycle, a season beginning with hope, ending in heartbreak. A new name promised as the answer, only to turn into another painful question. And then this moment, this one fiery declaration from Garrett. It wasn't just words, it was the soul of the team speaking. He wasn't just talking for himself. He was speaking for the locker room, for the fans, for an entire city desperate for stability and belief. He was saying, "We've got our guy." And in that instant, Shedeur Sanders stopped being a prospect. He stopped being a placeholder. He stopped being just the rookie. He became the quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Think about the timing. This isn't preseason fluff. This isn't a meaningless scrimmage. This isn't a Week 17 throw-the-rookie-in experiment. This is Week 2 against Baltimore, against a defense that has made a living out of breaking young quarterbacks in half. A defense that thrives on confusion, on chaos, on sending blitzes so fast you barely have time to blink. And yet Cleveland is putting their entire future right into that fire. And you know what? That's not reckless. That's not desperate. That's a statement, because when MYLES GARRETT puts his stamp of approval on something, it's different. This isn't just any player tossing his opinion around. This is the anchor, the captain, the warrior who has carried this franchise's spirit through every storm. And here's what makes it powerful. Garrett has seen it all. He's seen quarterbacks walk in and out of those doors like a revolving cast in a bad play. He's seen hype burn bright and die fast. He's seen expectations crush men who couldn't handle it. For him to stand tall and say, "This kid is the one," that's not casual, that's conviction. And then there's Shedeur himself. This isn't just some rookie who lucked into a starting spot. This is a kid groomed for this moment since he could walk. He's not rattled by pressure. He was raised in it. Son of Deion Sanders. The spotlight has followed him his entire life. Every camera flash, every headline, every ounce of scrutiny. He's lived with it since long before he ever stepped on an NFL field. And that's what makes this moment so different. While most rookies step into week 2 wide-eyed, hands trembling, afraid to mess up, Shedeur steps in with poise, composure, calm, as if to say, "This is exactly where I'm supposed to be." But don't mistake calm for easy. The Baltimore Ravens are not going to make this smooth. They're the crucible. They disguise coverages, bait you into mistakes, smell weakness like blood in the water. Rookies don't survive the Ravens. They get eaten alive. And that's what makes this a defining test. Because even if Shedeur doesn't light up the stat sheet, even if he takes hits, even if he throws a pick, this moment isn't about perfection. It's about presence. It's about walking into the fire and not flinching. It's about showing glimpses of that talent, those throws, that leadership that make even the Ravens' defense stop and say, "Hold up, this kid might be for real." And if he does that, if he shows even a spark, the conversation around Cleveland doesn't just change, it explodes. Because this is bigger than a quarterback starting. This is a franchise daring to believe again. This is MYLES GARRETT planting a flag in the ground saying, "This is our guy." This is a city scarred by heartbreak finally seeing a light breaking through the clouds. And I'll tell you right now, it feels different. It feels like the moment we'll look back on years from now and say, that was the turning point. Not when the Browns drafted another quarterback, not when a coach made a bland announcement, but when the leader of the team, the face of the franchise, stood up, snapped, and declared with his whole chest, he's the one. Now, we've all seen tough losses before, right? A dropped pass here, a bad play call there. But this was different. After the Browns let one slip through their fingers against Cincinnati, insiders are saying that Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the team, stormed down into the locker room. And not just to have a quiet word. No, they're saying he unloaded on Stefanski in front of the entire locker room. Coaches, veterans, rookies, staff. Everybody saw it, and it all came down to one decision: benching Shedeur Sanders. Think about that for a second. This wasn't some random disagreement. This wasn't some shrug it off, we'll figure it out kind of moment. This was the owner of the Cleveland Browns, a man with money, power, and ultimate authority, humiliating his head coach in front of the very players Stefanski is supposed to lead. That's not just frustration. That's an earthquake shaking the foundation of the entire franchise. And honestly, you could feel the tension building before it even happened. I was watching that game, and I could hear it. The crowd inside First Energy Stadium turning on their own coach. Fourth quarter, the Browns trailing by a single point, the offense sputtering, and then it started. Thousands of voices rising in unison. "We want Shedeur. We want Shedeur." It wasn't a whisper. It wasn't a small section. It was the whole building, begging for the rookie phenom, the guy who dominated camp, the guy who electrified preseason. And what did Stefanski do? He stuck with Joe Flacco, and when Flacco turned it over on downs and Burrow kneeled the clock out, you could almost feel the city of Cleveland snap in half. The boos rained down. Social media exploded. Within minutes, hashtags were trending. Fire Stefanski. Start Shedeur. Bench Flacco. Talk radio lines were jammed with angry callers. One guy supposedly screamed for 17 straight seconds before hanging up. Another threatened to cancel season tickets he'd held since the 60s. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was betrayal. And here's where it gets wild. Haslam didn't even wait for the dust to settle. He left his luxury suite before the game was over. Witnesses said he looked furious as he stormed toward the locker room. The elevator ride down? People described it like waiting for a bomb to go off. And when those doors opened, Haslam walked out like a man with a mission. He wasn't emotional. He was calculated. The scene in that locker room, if the reports are true, was unlike anything I've ever heard in the NFL. Players were mid-undress. Some coaches were frozen in place. Equipment guys slipped into the back. And Haslam just let Stefanski have it. He pointed right at Shedeur Sanders and said, "That's our franchise quarterback sitting there watching us lose. You left him holding a clipboard." And when Stefanski tried to talk about game management, Haslam cut him off with, "Game management? You managed us straight into another loss," then slammed his hand on a table so hard the sound echoed through the whole room, before walking out and leaving the place dead silent. Imagine being Shedeur in that moment. Helmet still on, sitting at his locker, staring at the floor, not saying a word while his name was being thrown around like a grenade. Teammates glancing at him, receivers huddling around, vets whispering among themselves. That locker room wasn't just tense, it was fractured. And the truth is, players know. They've seen Shedeur all camp. They've watched him torch scout team defenses, stay late studying film, show anticipation and poise that rookies just aren't supposed to have. Some of them reportedly told reporters afterward, "Everybody knows he's ready." Others said flat out, "This is history repeating itself. Another Browns season, another quarterback controversy blowing up before October." Meanwhile, Flacco's line tells the story. 18 of 29, 167 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Mediocrity, missed third downs, blown red zone chances, no pocket. Presence. He even apologized to teammates afterward, admitting he wasn't good enough. But Stefanski kept defending him, and that just widened the cracks. Shedeur didn't say anything to the media, but I've heard this about him. He's not sulking. He's documenting everything, writing it down, storing it away. He's preparing. Because he knows, and honestly the whole city knows, his moment is coming. And when it does, he'll be ready. Fans aren't waiting, though. Hundreds gathered outside the stadium that night with signs saying, "Let Shedeur play and fire. Stefanski now." Police had to step in. One guy even chained himself to the stadium gates. On social media, it was a firestorm. Within an hour of the game ending, Start Shedeur racked up 17 million impressions. TikToks, Instagram lives, YouTube breakdowns, an entire digital movement demanding change, and it's not just fans. Analysts are piling on, too. Adam Schefter said the front office is already talking about changing the quarterback plan. Shannon, sharp? He went nuclear, called it coaching malpractice. Said Stefanski embarrassed himself by hyping up Sanders all offseason just to leave him on the bench when it mattered most. And let's not forget the bigger picture here. Stefanski has a contract that's supposed to guarantee him roster control. If Haslam is stepping in and publicly overriding his coach, that's not just dysfunction. That's potentially a breach of contract. That's legal territory. Agents are circling. Lawyers are whispering. The cracks aren't just on the field anymore. They're running through the entire foundation of the organization. Even Andrew Berry, the GM, is caught in the crossfire. He was nowhere to be found during the confrontation. Now he's stuck. Between an owner who wants Shedeur yesterday and a coach clinging to Flacco, his draft night comments hyping up Sanders are coming back to haunt him. Let's build a totem pole together. Smash like, subscribe, and comment. If this video hits 2,000 likes, that means we're beating the Baltimore Ravens. Let's make it happen. Meanwhile, MYLES GARRETT reportedly told the defense they're wasting elite performances on an offense that can't score. And he's right. 2 sacks, a forced fumble, holding Burrow to 17 points. That should have been enough to win. Instead, they walked off the field empty-handed. And if Garrett ever chooses sides in this mess, believe me, that's the side the locker room will follow. And here's the part that really gives me chills. Monday morning, Stefanski shows up at the facility, and his parking spot is already taken by Haslam's car. Symbolism doesn't get clearer than that. Assistant coaches are hearing one thing from ownership and another from Stefanski. Practices are confused, players are frustrated, and honestly, this looks like the beginning of the end. This isn't just a quarterback debate anymore. This is a full-blown organizational identity crisis. Ownership interference, coaching stubbornness, player frustration, fan revolt. And stuck right in the middle is Shedeur Sanders, a rookie who hasn't even started a game yet, but somehow already feels like the axis the entire franchise is spinning around. And the question now is this: how much longer can Stefanski hold out? How much longer before Haslam makes the call, pulls the trigger, and gives Cleveland what it's been chanting for? Because every week that Shedeur sits, the Browns aren't just losing games. They're losing their locker room, their fan base, and maybe even their future.